Hey everyone, thanks for joining and welcome to the webinar on Going Beyond Customer Asks. Before we dive deep into the topic, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Vinay and I am based out of Bangalore in India. I've been working as a PM for about 5 years now and I've had the opportunity to work across different companies, including Oracle, Samsung, and Microsoft. I started off as a software engineer at Oracle, and then the curiosity to understand the complete customer story led me to move into a PM role within Oracle, where I was looking into their B2B project and schedule management SaaS application. I then went on to do my MBA from the Indian School of Business and joined Samsung as a PM for one of their B2C mobile applications. Currently, I work as a PM at Microsoft, where I look into the groups platform in the Office 365 suite. Throughout this journey, I have had the opportunity to talk to several customers, and I've always been sort of intrigued by what customers ask for and how they actually use the product we build. Through this journey, I have personally realized why it is important for me as a PM to go beyond customer needs. And I'm glad to share a few of those learnings in the session today. Please feel free to drop your messages in the chat and let me know where you're from and what you do. I just also want to call out that most of the things which I'll be sharing in this presentation is publicly available. And with that disclaimer, let's get started. First, let me try to explain why it is important to go beyond customer asks. As a PM, when you talk to several customers and start gathering requirements, you get a bunch of these different asks, where the customers are sharing everything they desire or everything they want. The diagram on your screen is something you might be familiar with. Let's say you go ahead and sort of define the requirements based on the customer wants. Then your team designs it and goes ahead and builds the solution. Eventually, when you go back to the customer with the solution which you just built, you realized what they needed was slightly different from what they asked for. So there was actually a difference between what they wanted and what they needed. Further, it might sometimes lead to you having to redo or undo the solution you built, as it might not be completely usable in its current form because it was different from what the customer actually needed. So, how do we bridge this gap? So, how can we identify the exact need of the customer? How do you ensure you're building for the customer's needs? And lastly, how do you know the customer will use the solution which you plan to implement? Let me share a few of my learnings on how you could go about doing that. You could first consider the following steps before you actually choose to implement a solution. The first step is understanding the customer's wants better. The second step is to convert these customer wants to a need and then co design a solution with them. We'll go into this in a little more detail as this is a key step. Lastly, I'll share some learnings on how you can validate the design before you ask your engineering team to implement the solution. Let's talk about the first step, which is understanding the customer wants. As most of you might already be aware, the typical way you would probably start with this is when you get a one line requirement from a customer or, say, your sales team or account team, or when you come across, say, some data point or an insight, or you come across a customer problem or an opportunity you want to solve for. So at this stage, you're actually going about doing secondary research to know more about the problem. You're trying to dive deeper into the data to understand the insights, and you're trying to identify the different personas which might be impacted by the problem. Identifying different personas at this stage is really important. For example, a simple customer requirement in case of, let's say, a food delivery app could be that the user should be able to place a food order from a restaurant in their pin code. So, here, as you dig deeper into the problem, you realize that there could be multiple personas involved as part of this requirement. So in this case, it could involve the restaurant owner, the actual user who is placing the order, and also the delivery agent who is going to pick up the order and deliver the order. So at this stage, it becomes really important for you to identify the different user personas because it forms the base of whom you want to talk to. A general outcome of the secondary research could be a one page document which calls out the background, the problem or the scenario, the user personas, and also the potential impact. I've found that writing a one pager at this stage helps you get clarity, and it also helps you get some initial feedback or some direction from your peers. Say once you have some clarity and you understand what are the different personas or people you want to talk to, you can go ahead and start recruiting the required stakeholders to understand these customers' wants better. A key thing I want to call out here is that you should not recruit only your customers, but you should also be recruiting the folks internal to your organization, which could be your account managers or your sales folks or support folks or SMEs or say engineering and design folks. Recruiting internal stakeholders is equally important as recruiting customers whom you want to talk to. You will get to learn about different perspectives from all of these folks. You can recruit customers based on the different personas. For example, if you want to recruit a B2B customers, you can reach out directly to your account or your sales team who might then help you connect with the customer. If you want to recruit your end users, you can use tools such as usertesting.com and set up calls with these end users to understand their experiences and problems better. If you're using usertesting.com for recruitment, I would strongly suggest that you make sure you have a very good user screener in place. Else, you could end up talking to the wrong set of users. A third channel which you could also consider for recruitment is by sharing the sign up forms in different blocks or communities within your org or outside your org so that you can go ahead and recruit these customers. Personally, I've found this to be sort of very helpful. For instance, we recently posted a blurb in a Microsoft tech community, and that actually helped us recruit a large number of customers who are willing to share their problems and experiences with us. Once you have recruited all the required customers internally and externally, you can go ahead and schedule the required meetings with these folks to understand the customers' wants better. Also, note that it's important for you to talk to a good sample of customers based on the scale or reach of your product. And at this stage, going with a divergent approach will help you get a lot of perspectives on the different customer wants. So once you schedule the calls with the required stakeholders, the next step is to prepare for these calls. Personally, I've found it helpful to have a standard set of prepared questions for every customer conversation. And the questions have to be open. And the key here is understanding the user journey through these questions. At the same time, don't be too stringent on the questions you prepare for and let the conversation sort of flow freely with these customers. Having a standard set of prepared questions will help you eventually in framing the problem when you have spoken to enough number of customers. You can go ahead and talk to these different customers through one-on-one conversations or even through focus group discussions, which generally includes few customers in a meeting room. I have found both of these mediums to be sort of helpful. In one-on-one conversations, customers are generally sort of a lot more open to share their experiences and concerns. However, in a focus group, I have found customers building on top of what others have already shared. So I would suggest you pick a medium which could be one-on-one or focus groups or a mix of both to have these different customer conversations. And during these conversations, consistent note taking for the questions you have is very, very important. You could even have one of your teammates take notes while you ask questions to customers or even record the meeting if possible so that you can take the notes later. Having consistent notes for all of the different customer conversations will help you frame the problem better. So, outcome at this stage would be a set of problems or customers' wants, which you could then go ahead and prioritize. So far, as part of the first step, what we have really done is try to understand the customer wants better by involving different stakeholders who are both internal and external to the company. In the next step, let's try to understand how we can convert a customer want to a need and also go ahead and co design these solutions. Now, let's talk about how we can convert the different customer problems or wants into needs. For this, you can use a framework called as jobs to be done. Let's take an example to understand this problem better. Let's say there is a customer want which says that I should be able to place a food delivery order and that should be delivered within 30 minutes. So this customer want can now be broken down into different jobs for different actors by considering the situation and motivation. A typical format for a job is as an actor A, when I am in a situation B, I want to do C so that I can achieve D. So in this case, one of the jobs could be as an end user, when I am hungry, I want to be able to place a food order so that the food is delivered in 30 minutes. And another job here could be that as a restaurant owner, when I am notified of the order, I want to start preparing the food so that the food can be delivered in 30 minutes. So that could be one of the outcomes. And the other outcome could be that so that the delivery agent can pick up the food in 20 minutes. So you can see that different jobs could have same outcomes or situations or motivations. Thus, the jobs to be done frameworks will actually help you break down the customer wants into actual customer needs. Further, the context you got from all your previous customer conversations will help you define these different jobs and also prioritize them. The key here is that a better understanding of the situation and motivation of these different actors will help you get clarity on the customer need. So once you have defined the various jobs, you can go ahead and identify the core jobs which you want to focus on. Once you have the core jobs defined, you're good to schedule a design sprint with internal stakeholders and also the customers you previously spoke to, or even maybe consider inviting new customers. During the design sprint, you can share a core job with your participants and ask them to share their thoughts on how they would actually go about solving for that core job. This exercise will help you generate a lot of ideas on how you could be solving a particular user need. It will help you get new ideas you might not even have sort of thought about. It will help you identify different touch points within your application where you can actually go ahead and build the solution. Personally, be it a B2B or a B2C product, I have found co designing solutions with customers and internal stakeholders as being one of the key ways for me to understand how exactly is the customer planning to use the solution which we might come up with. And further, it also gives a lot of clarity to your internal stakeholders on what customers are actually looking for. While you're in a design sprint, participants might suggest a lot of ideas, and it is always good to sort of ask them to vote or stack rank these ideas so it becomes easier for you to understand the user affinity or even the user preferences. To conduct a design sprint, you can use one of the many whiteboarding design tools such as Figma, Mural, or say Jamboard. Personally, I have found Mural to be an excellent tool for designing and collaborating. And here's one such example where you can see multiple customers putting their thoughts into a mural board by using stickies, sketches, and images. At the end of this stage, you should have a good pool of ideas and you should have also have a reasonable understanding of how customers might actually want to use the solution. You can go back to the drawing board with your design team, evaluate these ideas, and come up with designs and solutions for each of the core jobs or customer needs. Once you have the designs in place, you can go ahead and further validate these designs. One of the key questions I ask myself at this stage is why would the customer use this solution? And here I have found the hook model from Nereal to be highly useful. The model will help you understand why would a user take an action through the solution which you just designed. And why would the user use your solution versus, let's say, an alternative? It could be within your app or also maybe, let's say, a competitor app. For example, if you build a solution to place a food delivery order using the hook framework, you can evaluate when the customer will come to your app and why will they come to your app versus, let's say, go to a different app. Further, using the framework, you can evaluate what is the reward they get and have they invested enough to come back to your solution. For example, if I have saved a file in Google Drive, have invested enough for me to go back to Google Drive. You can further augment this sh- by sharing the designs with your customers and asking them if they would use it. This direct feedback from customers will also help you tweak the designs further. So at this stage, self-evaluation and customer feedback will help you answer the question on why would customers use the solution even before you actually go ahead and build it. This should give you enough fodder to share and socialize the designs internally with more stakeholders such as your PM peers or engineering team to sort of check the feasibility. Further, you can also evaluate the historical data to figure out if the solution you're proposing will get enough traction from customers. And this would be a good stage for you to actually jump into the implementation of the solution. To summarize, what we have actually done is converted the customer want to a need by engaging with customers and internal stakeholders. By doing so, we haven't rushed into implementation and instead, we have first defined and validated the customer need. And how did we do it? We did it with three simple steps. That is, first is we identified the difference between what is a customer want and what is the actual customer need. We then defined customer needs and used that knowledge to co-design solutions with customers and internal stakeholders. We then went on to validate these designs with internal stakeholders and different customers. Once you have done that, you can start implementing or building the solution, launch a preview or a pilot, get more feedback, and iterate again. Remember that throughout this journey, we have always engaged with the customers and internal stakeholders to get their feedback and go ahead and design the solution for the right customer need. With that, we come to the end of this session. Hope it was useful, and I really like to thank you for listening patiently. You can also reach out to me on my Gmail or LinkedIn using the QR code or the URL you see on your screen. Please feel free to share your comments and feedback, and thank you for watching.